President Hu Jintao calls one country, two systems the right policy. Police use pepper spray against protesters. And in Egypt, Mohamed Morsi takes his oath of office as president.
Good evening. A huge crowd is staging a demonstration outside the Convention and Exhibition Centre in Wanchai, where President Hu Jintao is attending a dinner banquet. They are members of different pro-democracy parties and activist groups. The protesters are calling on Beijing to investigate the death of mainland activist Li Wangyang and to reverse the official verdict of the 1989 pro-democracy protest in Tiananmen Square. Jessica Gable is standing by in Wanchai. Jessica, what is going on there?
Well, Jenny, the protesters have been out here for about 4 hours, and at its height, the Hong Kong Alliance estimated there were about 3,000 here. They're from all over the place, including Falun Gong practitioners, members of the Democratic Party, the League of Social Democrats, and many others out here. Like you said, they are calling for an investigation into the death of Li Wangyang, somewhat justice for the events of June 4th in 1989. The crowds have dwindled, and it's much calmer out here, but earlier it was much more chaotic. We want the truth behind Li Wangyang's death, shouted protesters led by the Hong Kong Alliance in support of patriotic democratic movements of China as they set off from the southern playground in Wanchai. The Chinese character for injustice led the way, and that's how they feel dissidents on the mainland are being treated. Their banners called for greater democracy and an end to one-party rule.
Today's theme is for Mr. Li Wangyang because his death is very doubtful, and we want Chinese government to have an investigation on his death.
What began as a peaceful march turned chaotic outside the Convention and Exhibition Centre. Protesters clambered onto the giant water-filled barriers to unfurl banners, at which point the pushing and shoving got worse. The crowd swelled and more police officers came for backup.
The protesters behind me are starting to charge through the barricades police have set up. So police are trying to send warnings to the crowd that they will use force if necessary.
They did. Officers used pepper spray against the protesters, but those determined to make themselves heard put up with the sting in their eyes until it was simply unbearable. Then the situation calmed down and the protesters were surrounded by row after row of police officers. Police are still patrolling the barricades along here, making sure that no one gets in or out. And Lee Chuk-yan of the Hong Kong Alliance is saying that the protesters are determined to stay out here as long as it takes for them to get what they want, which is for a personal representative of Hu Jintao to come and accept their petition personally. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jessica Gable in Wanchai. Now, President Hu